Welcome to a Procure Tribe presentation. My name is Tony Davey and I'll be taking you on a strategic sourcing journey where we will discuss what sourcing is and why it is so important for every business, no matter the type or the size of the organization. In everyday life, we as humans source. We have needs and wants. We search out and we buy what we require based on a decision-making process and the resources available to us. We decide on the quality of what we need, the quantity we desire, we compare options, we seek alternatives, and we plan ahead for future requirements. We have been sourcing since the beginning of our existence. One might argue that it's our ability to successfully source that has helped us survive and develop as a species. We find the best food to eat and the best shelter to protect us, and even the best partner to help us thrive and create the next generation. Even Fred the caveman got good at sourcing his accommodation. In the modern world, businesses have realized the potential benefits and value of effective sourcing. And as such, this has now become a profession and a crucial component of any successful enterprise. This presentation is very much about sourcing in the business context. Before we go any further, let me just cover off on what you can expect to get from this presentation. Firstly, it is critical to understand why strategic sourcing is important in order to articulate the value proposition in a way that makes sense to business leaders. We will also cover off on the science and the art of strategic sourcing. Science, because certainly a detailed analysis of data and information is imperative, but also use the word art because as much as there is a specific process that can be followed, every company, every market, and every deal will be different. And so a lot of creativity is required to extract the maximum value from each event. So let's get started and talk about the fundamentals of every business. An understanding of the fundamentals will showcase the area in which strategic sourcing delivers the most value. Business is all about adding value. If a business does not add value, it will cease to exist. Every successful business without fail takes inputs and converts these to something that is more valuable than just the sum of the inputs. Converting inputs to outputs is one part of the process. Think about a manufacturing facility where raw steel is used to make spindles, or a farm where seeds are grown for food, or even a hairdresser where scissors and scale cut your hair. Conversion is the process of adding value, and this is why a customer is prepared to pay. Prompt and timely deliveries of either goods or services is advantageous to both customers and businesses alike. Therefore, transporting and locating a product within easy access for customers requires distribution planning in order to help facilitate the sales. Keeping a product close to a customer and easily accessible is not good enough on its own to secure the sale, and so businesses often have to invest in activities to make the customers aware of their product and provide information that encourages the purchase. For the purposes of this presentation, we are going to focus on unlocking value from business inputs. This is not the only way in which strategic sourcing unlocks value, but is often the primary starting point. I think it worthwhile spending a little bit of time exploring inputs and how they can be quite different depending on the type of business you operate. As you might have already gathered, inputs are typically either goods or services. Goods are tangible physical items, whereas services are intangible and normally performed by people. If your business is in fabrication, then you will likely need raw steel. If you are a baker, you may need various grains. If you operate a water theme park, you will procure a significant amount of water. Typically, goods can be accurately defined and the specifications validated for correctness. As for services, like contract labor, passenger transportation and management consultants, their value is far more difficult to measure, and decisions to purchase are often emotive and based on the buyer's judgment. A good example is trying to justify flying business class versus economy class, where it would be very difficult to accurately calculate the comparative benefits as an exact science. Another example input, office space, is a little more difficult to define. Most likely best fits into a service if you're leasing the location, or a good if you're purchasing it outright. Nonetheless, all these inputs can have an impact on the performance of your business, and in the next section we will discuss how this is so. Why do inputs matter? Well, where you source your inputs can greatly impact your branding, particularly as we adopt a more aggressive stance to stamping out modern slavery. The last thing any brand needs is to be in the media because they have been sourcing materials that were produced by children, or under any other questionable conditions. A key question in this situation is, have you followed a complete and sound sourcing process to ensure the safety of your supply chain beyond just the immediate supplier? The materials and skills of your supplier need to meet the quality standards set by your business. Poor quality will impact the caliber of your product, which at the end of the day will impact your ability to build a trusted brand with loyal customers. Your customers will not hold your supplier accountable for any imperfections, but rather see you exclusively responsible for the provision of a premium product. Ultimately, a business needs to be profitable. Both brand and quality play a significant role, but so does ensuring the inputs are good value for money, cost or revenue enhancing. As a relatable example, building a house within an agreed time frame to the specification within the budget will provide a stable form of reference and is likely to encourage others to want to sign the builder up for their own projects. Inputs can make or break a business through a combination of brand, quality, and financial performance. We have seen that businesses apply different approaches to sourcing. One could say that these approaches are different in style and that these styles can lead to drastically different outcomes. Simply put, we typically see a reactive or proactive sourcing approach. A reactive style is transactional in nature and requires the least amount of effort, but also delivers the least amount of value. And that may be okay for very small purchases of inconsequential items, similar to how one might feel about buying a $1 chocolate. However, proactive sourcing is a more strategic approach. It takes more time, it's more effort, but one would say it is certainly necessary for some of the bigger, more important purchases we make in life, example a car or a house. This logic is no different to sourcing on behalf of a business. Just like in your personal life, a business should choose the best sourcing style to use for its various purchases. We will cover off on this technique for selecting the appropriate sourcing style in a later chapter, but for now we will continue to focus on the more proactive approach known as strategic sourcing. As mentioned earlier on in this presentation, strategic sourcing is both a science and an art. The science is pretty straightforward and if followed correctly will deliver considerable results. However, the science plus the art will deliver phenomenal outcomes. As this is only an introduction, I will briefly address the various steps and provide a high-level description of the activity. Subsequent chapters will go into the detail of each and every step of the strategic sourcing process. I'm going to cover both the science and the art simultaneously. A logical starting point is to gather information that allows you to better understand the business requirements. What did the business buy? How much was bought over a period of time? What price was paid? Who in the business was the buyer? Who was the supplier? We call this a spend analysis, an analysis of historical spend transactions. 99% of businesses will keep records of each and every purchase, transaction, and this activity is about analyzing those transactions to unearth insights. A few important questions need to be answered as a part of the analysis. What is being purchased, and can I categorize it into a logical taxonomy around product type or supplier? Example, scissors, pens, pencils, paper can all be supplied by the same vendor and collectively fall under the category stationery. Who in your business is buying? This is important because you want to know who to speak to about future requirements and the criticality of the goods and services for the success of the business. Another key aspect is the pricing and quantities. Is it stable? Does it fluctuate? Is it consistent across different operating locations? Early in on the process of carrying out the spend analysis, you would have identified who the key buyers are. It is advantageous at this stage to introduce yourself to the buyer and take the time to understand their perspective around what is important about the goods or services they are buying, as well as establish a rapport. You want to establish what is important about the purchase. Is it price? Is it quality? Is it time? Is it a combination of multiple requirements? The next step involves understanding the supply market. Who can supply what the business needs? Thank goodness for Google. Carry out your search. Use your own market knowledge and find suppliers who provide what you need. Key questions include, is the supply market competitive? i.e., are there enough suppliers who want your business that they are willing to compete for it? What are the market forces? Is it difficult for new suppliers to join the market? Is the market government regulated? How much negotiation power do existing suppliers have? What are the risks in the supply market? Using the information gathered during the spend analysis, reach out to the incumbent suppliers currently servicing your business. Meet with them, get their perspective on the products they sell. Understand if there are any innovations or opportunities that they see to improve the relationship and the service offered. Sometimes there is something your business can do that will unlock significant value in the purchase. Example, provide a forecast of demand which will help the supplier better plan to get what you need when you need it. I always suggest to my team that they should also speak to suppliers who do not currently do business with your company. They are more likely to share lots of information with you in an effort to secure your future business, and hence you get a free education. After the first 2 steps, you should have enough knowledge to be able to join the dots on what the business requires and what the supply market can deliver. This insight will allow you to create the sourcing strategy, which is the plan to secure what the business needs with the least amount of risk, unlocking the maximum amount of value. Often sourcing strategies are only warranted in cases where there is high spend, high return, thus justifying the effort invested in the sourcing exercise. The sourcing strategy is also a great way to articulate what you intend to do and to secure the support from the rest of the business. How will you go to market? Request for information, request for quote, request for proposal. Will it be an auction? These are all techniques for going to the market. It is prudent to have an operational representative sponsor the sourcing strategy. Be the person who ensures the operational requirements are taken into account and to socialize the strategy with other operational staff. This approach will also facilitate a smoother transition and adoption should the supply situation change as a result of the sourcing exercise. Executing the sourcing strategy entails the issuing of the tender, managing the bid event, completing and coordinating the evaluation of the bids, planning and executing the supply negotiations, and finally drawing up the recommendation to award. The recommendation to award is the business approval to present a contract to the successful bidder or bidders. The process followed must be fair, as transparent as possible, and conducted with a high degree of probity. Sometimes the process results in an answer that others don't like, and so you will be challenged on the recommendation. Honor the process. You can't argue the answer if you are confident that the sound methodology was deployed. You will need to depend on your process to build credibility and influence decision makers. The final step of implementation is critical, the step where the rubber hits the road per se. Unfortunately, most businesses do not invest in this step enough, and as a result, value gained through the sourcing process is not fully realized. Implementation is about introducing the new contract to the operations, ensuring the users understand the salient features and all the obligations. Also, administrative activities like getting the relevant system set up, supplier registered, and prices captured in the system. The implementation may take some months, and so it's important to have a well thought out plan and to check in regularly with various stakeholders to make sure that things are progressing as expected. Some stakeholders may resist the change or may disagree with the outcome, and so it becomes important for you to continuously focus on the expected business benefits. Ensure that early results are well communicated and keep reminding yourself and others why the business chose the path that it did. As I have already mentioned, this is a high-level introduction to the strategic sourcing process. Don't worry if it's not totally clear, because the details for each activity will be thoroughly discussed in subsequent chapters. We have covered quite a bit, and if there were only 3 things to take away from this introduction, I would list them as: inputs, such as goods and services, are fundamental ingredients for running a business. Inputs matter because they impact the quality, the brand, and the profitability of your business. Phenomenal sourcing outcomes are possible through the combination of both science and art. That brings us to the end of this introduction. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to having you join me again as we step through the detail of each sourcing activity. Until then, goodbye for now.